My name is Mason Cole, and 3 hours ago I discovered my wife has been screwing her personal trainer in our marital bed while texting her friends about what a pathetic loser I am. That's quite an opener, isn't it? But here's the thing about living in Preston Hollow, Dallas. Secrets spread faster than fertilizer on a golf course, and everyone's lawn looks perfect until you dig beneath the surface. I'm a civil engineer. I build bridges, design foundations, calculate load-bearing capacities. I deal in facts, measurements, and structural integrity. So when I walked into our bedroom at 2:17 p.m. on a Tuesday, home early because the city inspector had food poisoning, and found my wife Vanessa's phone buzzing with notifications while she was at yoga, I did what any engineer would do. I gathered data. The phone was unlocked. Rookie mistake, Vanessa. The group chat was called Wine Wednesday Warriors, and the conversation was illuminating. Blair, girl, you're still going through with the anniversary party? After what you told us about Mason? Vanessa, I have to keep up appearances until I figure out my exit strategy. Besides, his engineering salary pays for my lifestyle. Cassie, but Trent is so much hotter. And that body, Vanessa, trust me, I know. We're meeting at the usual place in an hour. Mason's so clueless, he probably thinks I'm actually doing downward dog. Jules, you're terrible. But honestly, Mason's such a boring guy. No wonder you need some excitement. Vanessa, he'll never suspect anything. He's too busy with his blueprints and building codes to notice I've been building something else entirely. I set the phone down carefully. Structural integrity, Mason. Don't let the foundation crack just yet. Our house is a 3,200 square foot monument to Vanessa's social media presence. Every corner is Instagram ready, every surface gleaming with the kind of perfection that screams, "Look at my amazing life," to her 50,000 followers. She's a social media marketing executive for luxury brands, which basically means she gets paid to make people feel inadequate about their lives while selling them overpriced handbags. The irony wasn't lost on me. I walked through our our curated living space with its white leather furniture that nobody was allowed to actually sit on, and into the kitchen where Vanessa's protein smoothie ingredients were still scattered across the marble countertop. The woman who couldn't remember to put dishes in the dishwasher had somehow found time to conduct a months-long affair. The usual place wasn't hard to figure out. Vanessa had been raving about CrossFit Pinnacle for 6 months, specifically about the amazing personal attention she was getting from the owner. Trent Cross. Even his name sounded like a romance novel villain. I'd met him exactly once at a gym membership drive Vanessa had dragged me to. He was 41 years old with the kind of artificially enhanced physique that screamed, "I inject my personality directly into my glutes." He drove a custom Mustang with racing stripes and had the personality of a protein shake, bland, artificially flavored, and ultimately unsatisfying. But apparently he was satisfying my wife just fine. I checked my watch. Vanessa was meeting him in an hour and had sent that message 20 minutes ago. I had 40 minutes to decide what kind of man I was going to be. The old Mason, the one who'd spent 12 years of marriage trying to be understanding, supportive, and patient, would have confronted her directly, would have asked for counseling, suggested we work through our problems, maybe even blamed himself for not being attentive enough. The new Mason, the one born in that moment of crystal clear betrayal, had different ideas. I opened my laptop and started typing. To Richard Pemberton at PembertonHoldings.com, Diane Pemberton, gmail.com, subject regarding Vanessa. Richard and Diane, I wanted you to hear this from me first. I've discovered that Vanessa has been having an affair with her personal trainer for several months. I have evidence, including her own words describing me as clueless and boring, while she plans her exit strategy from our marriage. I thought you should know before you hear it from the Preston Hollow Gossip Network. I'm sure Vanessa will try to paint me as the villain in this story, but the facts speak for themselves. I'll be filing for divorce immediately. Mason and I attached screenshots of the group chat conversation and hit send. Then I forwarded the same screenshots to my own group chat. My college buddies who'd never quite understood what I saw in Vanessa, but had been too polite to say so. Finally, I sent one last message, directly to Vanessa. Enjoy your workout. I forwarded your group chat to your parents and filed for divorce. Your things will be on the front lawn by sunset. Have a blessed day. I hit send and closed the laptop. 43 minutes later, my phone exploded with notifications. Vanessa was calling, texting, and apparently having what sounded like a complete meltdown in her parents' driveway. But I was already 3 steps ahead, loading her designer clothes into garbage bags with the methodical precision of a man who'd finally found his breaking point. The doorbell rang at 6:47 p.m. I opened it to find Richard Pemberton, Vanessa's father, standing on my porch looking like he'd aged 10 years in the past 4 hours. Behind him, Vanessa was crying in the passenger seat of his Mercedes. "Mason," Richard said quietly, "we need to talk." "No, Richard, we really don't. But if you insist, let's make it quick. I have a marriage to dissolve." He stepped inside, his face pale. "My daughter made a mistake." "Your daughter made a choice, multiple choices actually, over several months. This wasn't a mistake, it was a calculated betrayal. She's willing to end it with this trainer, Trent Cross. His name is Trent Cross, and she's been screwing him in our marital bed while mocking me to her friends. But please, tell me more about how this is all just a misunderstanding." Richard's composure cracked. "You didn't have to humiliate her publicly. You didn't have to involve us. Actually, I did. Because in about 6 hours, when Vanessa's friends start their damage control campaign, I'm going to be painted as the unstable husband who couldn't satisfy his wife. I'm going to be the villain who drove poor Vanessa into the arms of another man. So, yes, Richard, I absolutely had to involve you." He clutched his chest suddenly, his face going white. I can't, Richard." He collapsed. The ambulance arrived in 12 minutes. The neighbors started gathering in 14. By the time Richard Pemberton was loaded into the back of the ambulance, with Vanessa holding his hand and shooting me looks that could melt steel, half of Preston Hollow had assembled on my front lawn. "This is your fault," Vanessa screamed at me as the paramedics worked. "You gave him a heart attack. You vindictive fool." Mrs. Henderson from next door was recording everything on her phone. The HOA president, Gary Whitman, was taking notes like he was documenting evidence for a war crimes tribunal. And Diane Pemberton, Vanessa's mother, was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Is it true?" Diane asked quietly as the ambulance pulled away. "About the affair?" I showed her the phone screenshots. She read them twice, her face hardening with each word. "Get in the car, Diane," Vanessa called from the Mercedes. "We need to get to the hospital." "You go ahead," Diane said. "I'll meet you there." After Vanessa left, Diane turned back to me. "She's been lying to us for months. About you, about her marriage, about everything." "I know. Richard's going to blame you anyway. He always does when Vanessa gets in trouble." "I know that too." She nodded slowly. "I'm sorry, Mason. You deserve better than this." After she left, I stood in my driveway surrounded by garbage bags full of designer clothes and looked at the crowd of neighbors who were pretending to be concerned but were obviously just hungry for gossip. "Show's over, folks," I announced. "Marriage is dead, husband's moving out, wife's at the hospital. I'll post updates on Nextdoor if anything interesting happens." Gary Whitman stepped forward. "Mason, I think we need to discuss your behavior today. The HOA has standards. Gary, with all due respect, go perform an anatomically impossible act on yourself. I'll be out of here by morning." I went back inside and started packing my actual belongings. Everything that mattered to me fit in 2 suitcases and a duffel bag. 12 years of marriage, reduced to 3 pieces of luggage. But first, I had one more task. I gathered every piece of lingerie Vanessa owned, and she owned a lot, and carried it out to the fire pit in our backyard. The expensive stuff. The stuff she'd bought for her workouts with Trent. The stuff she'd never worn for me. I lit a match. "If you're going to cheat," I said to the flames, "at least buy your own underwear. That's just polite." The silk and lace burned beautifully, creating a small mountain of ash that I carefully collected in one of Vanessa's designer gift boxes. The same boxes she used for her Instagram unboxing videos. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend Theo. "Dude, are you okay?" I saw the group chat. "Never better. Want to help me deliver a present?" Theo arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of whiskey and a grin. I always knew she was trouble, but damn, Mason. You went nuclear. Sometimes nuclear is the only option that gets results. We drove to Presbyterian Hospital in Theo's pickup truck, the gift box of ashes sitting between us like a ticking bomb. Richard was in stable condition, according to the nurse at the information desk. Stress-induced cardiac episode, not a full heart attack. He'd live to fight another day. I found them in the cardiac wing waiting room, Vanessa, Diane, and a handful of Vanessa's friends who'd apparently rushed over to provide moral support. Blair, Cassie, and Jules, the Wine Wednesday warriors themselves. They saw me coming and formed a protective circle around Vanessa, like she was the sufferer in this scenario. "You have some nerve showing up here," Blair said. After what I did?" I held up the gift box. "Ladies, I brought a present for Vanessa. Something to remember our marriage by." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" "Open it and find out." She took the box reluctantly, her hands shaking. When she lifted the lid and saw the ashes, her face went white. "Is that every piece of lingerie you own? The stuff you bought for your workouts with Trent? I thought you might want to keep it as a memento." Cassie gasped. Jules started crying. Blair looked like she wanted to call security. But Diane Pemberton started laughing. "Oh, Mason," she said, wiping tears from her eyes. "I always liked you." Vanessa dropped the box, scattering ashes across the hospital floor. "You're insane. You're completely insane." "No, Vanessa, I'm done. There's a difference. Daddy's in the hospital because of you. Daddy's in the hospital because his daughter is a lying, cheating narcissist who got caught." I just delivered the news. Richard appeared in the doorway, wearing a hospital gown and looking fragile but alert. "What's all this noise?" Vanessa ran to him. "Daddy, Mason he burned. He's trying to humiliate me." Richard looked at the ashes on the floor, then at me, then at his daughter. "Vanessa, go get me some coffee." But Daddy, coffee, now." After she left, Richard walked over to me. "You could have handled this privately." "I could have. But your daughter made it public the moment she started telling her friends what a pathetic husband I was. I just leveled the playing field." He was quiet for a long moment. "She's always been spoiled. Diane and we gave her everything she wanted, including a husband she could walk all over, including that." He looked at the ashes again. "What do you want, Mason?" "Nothing from you, Richard. I want out of this marriage. I want half of everything we built together, and I want your daughter to learn that actions have consequences." "And if I try to protect her, then you'll learn the same lesson she's about to learn. I'm not the same man I was this morning." When Vanessa returned with the coffee, Richard was sitting in a chair looking tired but resolved. "Vanessa, sit down." "Daddy, you need to rest." "I said sit down." She sat. "You're going to give Mason whatever he wants in the divorce. No fighting, no lawyers, no drama. You made this mess, you're going to clean it up." "But Daddy," "And you're going to move back home until you figure out what you're going to do with your life. The house, the cars, all of it. That's going back to Mason." Vanessa's face crumpled. "You can't be serious. Dead serious. And if you don't like it, you can find somewhere else to live and someone else to pay your bills." I stood up. "Richard, I appreciate the gesture, but I don't want your money or your house. I just want out." "Then what do you want?" I looked at Vanessa, surrounded by her friends, her perfect life crumbling around her like the ashes on the hospital floor. I want her to understand that I'm not the man she can manipulate anymore, and I want her to know that there are consequences for treating people like they're disposable. And I want everyone in Preston Hollow to know exactly who Vanessa Pemberton really is. I walked toward the elevator, then stopped and turned back. "Oh, and Vanessa, I'm keeping the dog." Theo's bachelor pad was a shrine to everything Vanessa had tried to eliminate from my life. Sports memorabilia, comfortable furniture you could actually sit on, and a refrigerator stocked with beer instead of organic kale smoothie ingredients. "So what's the plan?" Theo asked, handing me a Shiner Bock and settling into his recliner. "You've successfully nuked your marriage from orbit, given your father-in-law a cardiac episode, and turned yourself into the most talked-about man in Preston Hollow. Where do you go from here?" "Phase 2, I said, pulling out my laptop. "I need to know everything about Trent Cross." "Why?" "You already have what you need for the divorce." "Because Vanessa's friends are already spinning the story. I saw Blair's Instagram post an hour ago. Apparently, I'm an unstable husband who couldn't handle his wife's success and drove her into the arms of another man through my emotional neglect." Theo scrolled through his phone. "Oh, this is good. Cassie's calling you controlling and manipulative. And Jules is claiming you've been financially abusing Vanessa for years." "Exactly. So now I need to shift the narrative. And the best way to do that is to show everyone exactly what kind of man my wife chose over her marriage." I opened a browser and started searching. Trent Cross, age 41, owner of CrossFit Pinnacle. Divorced twice, no kids. Drives a 2019 Mustang GT with custom racing stripes that probably cost more than most people's cars. Compensating much? Oh, it gets better. I pulled up his social media profiles. Look at this Instagram feed. Shirtless gym selfies, motivational quotes about grinding and dominating, and approximately 700 photos of his car. Theo leaned over my shoulder. Is that a tank top that says alpha male? It is indeed. And here's his Facebook. Oh, this is interesting. He's been tagged at the Ritz-Carlton bar every Tuesday night for the past 3 months. Always with different women. Tuesdays. Wasn't that when Vanessa had her yoga classes? Bing. I screenshotted everything. But I need more than social media posts. I need evidence that shows exactly who this guy really is. What kind of evidence? I closed the laptop and looked at my best friend. The kind that requires field work. The next morning, I called in sick to work, the first sick day I'd taken in 2 years, and drove to CrossFit Pinnacle. The gym was housed in a converted warehouse in deep Elm, all exposed brick and industrial lighting, designed to look authentically gritty while charging premium prices. I parked across the street and waited. Trent arrived at 9:30 a.m. in his ridiculous Mustang, music thumping loud enough to wake the dead. He was wearing a tank top that showed off his artificially enhanced physique and sunglasses that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. I followed him inside, paid for a day pass, and started my reconnaissance. The gym was full of the usual suspects. Trust fund kids pretending to be tough, middle-aged executives trying to recapture their youth, and influencers recording workout videos for their social media feeds. Trent moved through the space like he owned it, which technically he did, but his attitude suggested he thought he owned everything else too. I set up at a rowing machine with a clear view of his office and started my workout. Real workout, not fake. I needed to blend in, and despite Vanessa's comments about my boring lifestyle, I'd been lifting weights since college. At 10:15, a woman in designer workout clothes approached Trent's office. Blonde, early 30s, expensive everything. They talked for a few minutes, then disappeared into the back room marked private training. At 10:45, they emerged. The woman looked flushed and satisfied in a way that had nothing to do with exercise. She handed Trent an envelope before leaving. Cash payment for private training. Right. I finished my workout and approached the front desk, where a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings was scrolling through her phone. Great gym. I'm Chad. I'm thinking about joining. Is the owner around? I'd love to talk to him about personal training. Trent, he's booked solid for weeks. Super popular, especially with the ladies. She giggled. But honestly, he's kind of an idiot, just between us. Really? He seems so professional. Professional at talking women out of their money and into his office. I've worked here for 6 months, and I've seen at least a dozen private training sessions that looked more like dates. Wow, that's concerning. Tell me about it. But hey, he pays well, and the job's easy. Plus, the drama's better than reality TV. I thanked her and left, my head spinning with possibilities. That evening, I met Theo at a sports bar near his apartment and filled him in on my reconnaissance mission. So he's basically running a high-end escort service disguised as a gym? Theo asked. More like he's using his position to seduce wealthy married women and probably blackmail them. Think about it. He gets them into compromising positions, literally and figuratively, then has leverage over them. Including your wife, especially my wife. Vanessa's not just another client, she's the daughter of Richard Pemberton. That's serious money and social connections. Theo was quiet for a moment. So what's the plan? I need to get him on record. Audio, video. Something that shows what he's really doing. That's potentially illegal, Mason. Not if I'm a potential client. Not if he's conducting business in a public space. And definitely not if he's the one who brings up the illegal stuff first. I pulled out my phone and showed Theo the voice memo app. Tomorrow night is Tuesday. He'll be at the Ritz bar, probably with another client. I'm going to accidentally bump into him and see what happens. This is either brilliant or completely insane. At this point, I'm not sure there's a difference. The Ritz-Carlton bar was exactly what you'd expect. Overpriced drinks, understated luxury, and the kind of clientele that discussed stock portfolios over $30 martinis. I arrived early, positioned myself at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, and waited. Trent arrived at 8:30 with a brunette in a dress that cost more than my car payment. They settled into a booth near the back, and I watched as he worked his charm, touching her arm, leaning in close, making her laugh at jokes that probably weren't funny. At 9:15, she excused herself to the restroom. I made my move. Trent Cross. I approached his table with my phone recording in my pocket. Mason Cole. I think you know my wife, Vanessa. His face went through several expressions: surprise, recognition, then a smug grin that made me want to punch him. Mason, Vanessa's told me so much about you. Please sit down. I sat, keeping my expression neutral. I'm sure she has. Actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you. Oh? She's been raving about your training methods. Says you've really helped her discover things about herself she never knew existed. Trent's grin widened. I have a gift for bringing out the best in people, and especially women. They come to me feeling trapped, unsatisfied, and I help them find their true potential. That's fascinating. And you do this through personal training? Among other things. Sometimes people need more than just physical fitness, you know? They need emotional release, spiritual awakening, a chance to explore parts of themselves they've been denying. The brunette was returning from the restroom. I had maybe 30 seconds. I'd love to learn more about your methods. Maybe we could meet sometime, discuss how you've been helping my wife. Absolutely. Though I should mention my services aren't cheap. Quality costs money, and discretion costs even more. Discretion? Well, married women often need their privacy protected. Their husbands might not understand the kind of intensive therapy I provide. The brunette reached the table. I stood up and extended my hand to Trent. I'll be in touch. And Trent, thanks for taking such good care of Vanessa. I'm sure she appreciates everything you've done for her. His handshake was firm, confident. My pleasure, literally. I walked away with 47 minutes of recorded conversation and a plan that was starting to crystallize in my mind. Phase 2 was just getting started. I spent Wednesday morning at my real job, designing a bridge foundation that would last 100 years, while mentally planning the destruction of a man who thought he was untouchable. The irony wasn't lost on me. I build things that endure, but sometimes you have to tear something down first to make room for something better. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. We need to talk. I'm willing to work things out. I replied, talk to my lawyer. Mason, please, I made a mistake, but we can fix this. You made a choice, multiple choices, over several months. While mocking me to your friends, there's nothing to fix. I'll end it with Trent. I'll do whatever you want. Too late. I'm not interested in being your backup plan. She didn't respond after that, but I knew it wasn't over. Vanessa didn't handle rejection well, and she definitely didn't handle public humiliation well. She'd be planning her counterattack, but I was already 3 moves ahead. That evening, I met with Detective Rosa Ramos, a private investigator Theo had recommended. She was a former Dallas PD detective who'd gone private after getting tired of department politics, and she had the kind of no-nonsense attitude that reminded me why I'd always preferred working with professionals. So you want me to investigate your wife's boyfriend? She asked, reviewing the files I'd prepared. I want you to investigate a man who's potentially running a blackmail operation disguised as a fitness business. My wife is just one of his sufferers. Sufferers? I played her the recording from the Ritz bar. She listened twice, taking notes. This is good, but it's not enough for criminal charges. He's being suggestive, but he's not explicitly admitting to anything illegal. I know, but it's enough to start building a case. And I have more. I showed her the photos I'd taken at the gym, the social media evidence, and the financial records I'd managed to access through Vanessa's shared accounts. Your wife's been paying him $3,000 a month for personal training, Rosa said, studying the bank statements. That's a lot of money for gym sessions, especially considering she was also paying for a regular gym membership somewhere else. Rosa leaned back in her chair. What's your end game here, Mason? What do you really want? I want him exposed for what he is. I want everyone who thinks he's some kind of fitness guru to know he's actually a hunter who targets married women. And I want my wife to understand that she didn't trade up. She traded down to a bottom feeder. Revenge, in other words. Justice. There's a difference. Rosa smiled. Okay, I'll take the case. But we do this legally and ethically. No breaking and entering, no hacking, no vigilante nonsense. Agreed. And my fee is $500 a day plus expenses. Done. We shook hands, and I walked out of her office, feeling like I just hired a general for the war I was about to fight. Thursday night was when everything started accelerating. Rosa called me at 9 p.m. with an update. Your boy Trent is dirty, but not in the way you might expect. What do you mean? I've been tracking his financial records, the public ones anyway. He's leveraged to the hilt. The gym, the car, the apartment, all of it is financed. He's basically living paycheck to paycheck despite charging premium prices. So he's broke? Worse. He owes money to some very unpleasant people. I have a source who says he's been taking loans from investors who don't exactly follow traditional banking practices. Loan sharks, the kind who break kneecaps when you miss payments. And according to my source, Trent's been missing payments. I felt a cold smile spreading across my face. How much does he owe? $200,000, give or take, due in full by the end of the month. And if he doesn't pay, let's just say his pretty face won't be so pretty anymore. I thanked Rosa and hung up, my mind racing. Trent wasn't just a hunter. He was a desperate hunter, which made him dangerous, but also vulnerable. Friday morning brought a text from Blair, Vanessa's friend. We need to talk. Meet me at Starbucks on McKinney at noon. I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. Blair was the ringleader of Vanessa's friend group, the one who'd been most vocal about my supposed shortcomings as a husband. If she wanted to meet, it meant Vanessa was planning something. I arrived early and positioned myself at a corner table where I could see the entire coffee shop. Blair walked in 10 minutes late, looking like she'd spent an hour getting ready for a casual coffee meeting. Designer everything. Perfect makeup. The kind of artificial perfection that screamed, I'm trying too hard. She ordered some complicated drink with multiple modifications, then sat down across from me with the expression of someone about to deliver an ultimatum. Mason, we need to discuss your behavior. My behavior? The way you've been treating Vanessa. The public humiliation, the vindictive actions, the complete lack of empathy for what she's going through. I sipped my black coffee and waited for her to continue. She made a mistake, yes, but you've blown this completely out of proportion. You're acting like she committed some unforgivable crime instead of just exploring her options. Exploring her options. Is that what we're calling infidelity now? Blair's perfectly applied lipstick tightened into a thin line. She was unhappy, Mason. You weren't meeting her needs, emotionally or physically. She found someone who could give her what she was missing. And what was she missing exactly? Excitement, passion, a man who actually pays attention to her instead of being buried in work all the time. A man who charges $3,000 a month for his attention. Blair's composure slipped for just a moment. What? You didn't know? Trent's been charging Vanessa for their little rendezvous. $3,000 a month for personal training. Your friend wasn't having an affair, Blair. She was paying for Zex. That's not true. I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank records. Vanessa's been paying Trent Cross $3,000 a month for 6 months. $18,000 total. For a married woman to sleep with her personal trainer. Blair stared at the screen, her face going pale under her foundation. There's more, I continued. Trent owes $200,000 to some very dangerous people. Money that's due at the end of this month. Want to guess where he was planning to get it? You're lying. Am I? Ask Vanessa how much money she's been giving him. Ask her about the investment opportunity he's probably been talking about. Ask her if he's mentioned needing help with a temporary cash flow problem. Blair stood up abruptly, knocking over her chair. You're sick, Mason. Vanessa was right about you. What did she say about me, Blair? That you're controlling, manipulative, and obsessed with destroying anyone who threatens your ego. Interesting. Because the way I see it, I'm just a man who refuses to be played for a fool by his wife and her friends. Blair grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then turned back. This isn't over, Mason. No, it's not. But it's going to end very differently than you think. That night, Theo and I sat in his living room, planning what he'd started calling Operation Scorched Earth. So, Trent's broke. Vanessa's been paying him for Zex, and Blair's probably warning everyone right now that you're onto their game, Theo summarized. Which means they're going to escalate. Vanessa's not the type to go quietly. And if Trent's as desperate as Rosa thinks, he might do something stupid. Like what? Like try to squeeze more money out of Vanessa, or threaten to expose their affair unless she helps him with his debt problem. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Back off or you'll regret it. I showed it to Theo. Speak of the devil. Who is this? He, I replied. Someone who doesn't like nosy husbands. Drop your investigation or things will get unpleasant. Trent, is that you? This is adorable. Are you threatening me? Last warning. I turned to Theo. Change of plans. We're not waiting for Rosa to build a case. We're going on offense. What do you have in mind? I smiled, and for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I felt like myself again. Not the patient, understanding husband who'd been taken for granted for 12 years. Not the sufferer of betrayal who'd been humiliated and discarded. The engineer who solved problems by building something better than what came before. We're going to give Trent Cross exactly what he deserves, and we're going to do it in front of everyone he's been trying to impress.